Welcome to Honest Car Reviews. My name is Eric and this is the Mercedes G-Class 400d. The G-Class is truly an icon. There's nothing currently that is as boxy as this car is. In 2018, the G-Class received an update, not only to the exterior, but also made some changes to the chassis and interior as well. And not only will I talk about the update to the 2018 model, but I also talk about the G-Class of itself, its future, and the competition. This is a G400d, so that is a diesel, which has about 320 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque. It goes through a 9-speed torque converter automatic gearbox and goes through all 4 wheels with a 4-wheel drive system. I think that the competition here is the newly launched Land Rover Defender, and this is smaller than the Defender 110 but bigger definitely than the Defender 90. From the start, the base price is about 120,000 euros. This car has extra option wheels, extra option paint, extra option interior, and some active or driving features, electronic driving aids. So this puts this car at about 150,000 euros. And the exterior, I talked about it before. It is so freaking boxy, but in a extremely good way. When you look at the older versions, they look fairly small in comparison with this new. I think the new one has a wider front and it really grows on you, and I think that especially with these bigger wheels that fill up the wheel arches really suits the vehicle. But look at these just functional fender arches. They're just on there, and the paint is also really nice, this metallic and not that much orange peel, really well done. And the G-Class is famous for its locking and opening sounds. So if I open it up, close it, you can hear it when I open it, just like a mechanical chunk. And the rear opens like this, really heavy door. You can see this nice extra option finish of the material. Not the biggest, but you can load so high up. You can fold down in the 60/40 configuration, completely flat, and you can see how far you actually have to move the rear headrest to have it at your head. I'll talk more about how the rear seating position is. But this car is actually higher than I am. It's pretty crazy. Then you can see that these are now, you don't pull them, you push it. Then you open them. And then such a distinct sound. The updated G-Class has some high strength steel at the A and B pillars, if I'm not mistaken, and some aluminium. So they have been able to cut over 100 kilograms compared to the old version, and the front suspension is now not a rigid axle, it is now independent front suspension. Mercedes claims have had a great effect on how well this car handles on road, but it shouldn't affect how it handles off-road. On the contrary, they claim that this handles in some ways better. When you go into the Swedish website and spec this car out and you choose the engine option, you have the G63, the G500 and the G400d. So this is the lowest option of the engine configurations, which is quite interesting. But the most bought car, or the bought engine, is the G63. Pretty nuts. But this engine is not something that you should scoff at, because it does 0 to 100 km/h in just over 6 seconds. And I'll talk more about how the car drives, of course, later. But I like this more than the Land Rover Defender. I think it has more to do with a matter of tastes. The Defender definitely flies more under the radar than the G-Wagen. Look at the rear seats. And interesting, it has the side steps here, and I'm fairly tall. So for me, I can almost skip this step. But that makes that I don't really reach, and I have to scoot myself in. And I don't feel that there's a handle anywhere that I can use apart from this to get myself in. And this is not far enough in for me to use as a lever. So that's something that I think that they should work on. It has air suspension, so they could make the car lower itself when you stand still. The seating sofa is quite far back, or far back enough to have a good seating position that I feel I can sit for a long amount of time. The foot space is not the best, but I have enough lower thigh support. The bench of itself is high up enough to support my lower thighs, and that's hugely important for me that have quite long legs. Decent view outwards. The A pillar, the B pillar and the C pillar are not that thick, so yeah, just good visibility all around. And you can see here Burmeister surround system. Everything is very angular, but you can see that the buttons and so on are the same as in almost every other Mercedes. The first thing that I felt when I got into the car was that these sides were really far up and made it uncomfortable. But after a week with this car, the seats are hugely comfortable. And sitting so high up and with the side profile, the height of the side not being that high up, you have a great visibility outwards. I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, great visibility all around the car. And of course you have 360 cameras, so if you want to navigate tight parking spaces or that trail, no problem. One problem I found with the interior is the lack of space. Yeah, you have this small side door storage area, but that's extremely small. You have this in the middle where you have two old USB types to charge your phone, and it can handle some drinks and so on, but you have cup holders here in front. That's pretty much it. I would like some more storage space, maybe underneath or something else, because I don't think this is enough. You feel that the interior is definitely G-Wagen, G-Class, especially these round dials, this solid grab handle, and this for the 2018 model big digital gauge cluster and big infotainment system. The steering wheel, however, is the AMG, old AMG version, which I really like, and I think it's easier to use than the new regular Mercedes steering wheel. You set the speed, never have to activate the cruise control, raise and lower the volume, use these haptic feedback controls are amazing. But the infotainment system, you really notice how fast these infotainment systems become old, because this is only about one generation old and it looks so dated. Yeah, it works fine, but just looks and feels dated. But it works, and that's the important thing. One thing I noticed when you pair your phone in order to access the Spotify, and if you want to play music in general, you have to press medium for the car to activate the media. So you can't just start the car, press play on your phone. You have to go into media here, and then it will activate. The sound system, the Burmester sound system, is amazing, just amazing. Tons of warmth to it. The bass is really good, but when you start to push it, you feel that the bass is not fake, but you can feel the bass falling off a cliff once you start to reach a certain level. You have front locking differential, middle or center diff, and rear diff. When you press this button, you'll go into a certain G-Wagen mode, and that is specifically for off-road driving. And you even have one more button here, and that is low range. And what is low range? That is for driving slow and over hilly terrain, and when you need some more torque. What I don't like is all of these creaks. The entire center here, you can just hear how much but up here everything feels really solid. It's here that everything feels, yeah, you can just hear and feel it flex. Driving the G-Class is, yeah, unique to say the least. That greenhouse, that view, especially with that huge side windows and this air suspension and weight and the quietness and so on, the amazing sound system. Just everything becomes a bit overwhelming in the beginning, but then everything settles down and you can feel that the car is designed to drive you. After some time it becomes really easy to drive. You grow into it fairly easy. Now driving 80, there's hardly any sound from the exterior, hardly any wind noise, and you just feel like an S-Class experience, albeit in an off-road SUV vehicle. Yeah, you have the GLS, and I can guess that that car drives and feels quite different than this G-Class. Being a diesel, you can see that I'm averaging about 0.7 liters per 10 kilometer, and that is quite impressive. But with today's fuel prices, with the diesel being more expensive, I feel that it evens out in the end. But 700 Newton meters and 320 horsepower with that torque converter, I feel is the good choice for this vehicle. The DCT is not necessary in this type of vehicle. In comparison with, for example, the Defender V8, that had a clear nod towards being more of a car than an off-road vehicle. But then again, you have the Mercedes G63, which will take care of that itch if you want something more powerful, more road, more twisty road friendly, and with more acceleration. I have some complaints though. The electronic driving aids, especially the lane assist. It's on here, and if I go to the sides, nothing happened. It only seems to register when you have clear lines. Nothing happened there. These are extremely clear lines, and it doesn't really work at all. Really strange. And when they do work, they are not there to help you be within lines. It only warns you when you go too far out, and it applies brake to steer you in, and that can feel very rattling and scary, especially when you drive a bit quicker. Let's try it. Yeah, and you can just feel the whole car just shifting. I just got some cold sweats. It's extremely scary because You can just feel the brakes applying. You can feel the chassis start to get a bit nervous. Very unnerving feeling. Since it doesn't have a solid front axle, it is independent, double wishbone. And it has sport mode with pedals behind the steering wheel. I mean, it should be decent on a twisty road. Being a heavy car, it still has some oomph, and being a diesel as well, very torquey. The brakes I feel are a bit too small, yeah. And the car likes to understeer a bit, I feel. Yeah, not that much feedback through the steering wheel. It doesn't really feel comfortable at all being pushed here. I mean, it says, okay, I can drive a bit quicker. But yeah, I can feel the car push. And the front axle is not that good at the initial turn-in, doesn't give that much response. And the steering is, the weight of it and the gearing, the ratio of the steering is also not the best. I think it could be calibrated better for that. But then again, you have the G63 for that. And then again as well, it's a G-Class, it's not a sports car. You have the GLE, you have the GLC. Those vehicles are much better suited for this type of driving. And in that case, I feel that the Defender perhaps does a bit of a better job at driving on these twisty roads than the G-Class. So we can conclude that this car and the G-Class is more meant for calm daily driving and of course off-road driving. It has front, rear and mid locking differentials, so definitely an off-road vehicle and a car that is meant to be used. There's nothing really quite like it. Yeah, you had the Land Rover Defender, but this exterior, interior, there isn't anything that has that tradition, that icon status that the G-Class has. So it's probably the last of its kind. But Mercedes has hinted or shown that the G-Class will be electric in the future. I don't feel that putting an electric engine into the G-Class would change all of the things that makes a G-Class a G-Class. So I'm looking forward to see what the G-Class can become. I'm ecstatic that I got to experience it, because it is something truly out of this world. And that's my final conclusion for the Mercedes G-Class. See you next time.